Whoops, I wasn't quite in it there. Welcome back, fight fans. We're back with some more fighting actions. It's your boy Blue here. We're gonna open up, of course, with UFC 277. Then we're gonna be going with this week's Contender Series, which was way better than last week, of course. I mean, seriously, one of the best Contender Series weeks we've ever seen. And then after that, we'll be going with this week's card. That's UFC Vegas 59, which is also the finale of season 30 of The Ultimate Fighter. So we'll get into that later. First, we're going with the pay-per-view, UFC 277. What a night it was. We're going to be changing it up a little bit. Normally, I go through every single fight, and it's been getting a little long. I mean, we love talking about every single fight, but I think maybe I'm going to start shortening it just a little bit. Just giving like pretty much just the results for the prelims that I didn't talk about in the previous stream. See how that works. We'll see how it goes. Cause 2 hours, 2.5 hours, that's a little bit long for what we're doing here. So we'll try and cut it down a little bit. So, opening up with the first prelim, that was Orion Kosi and Blood Diamond. This is kind of what I expected going into it. By the way, oh wow, I should preface this whole thing by saying this was my best week yet for the picks. I got 12 out of 13. The only one that I got wrong, we'll talk about it later, was the Derek Lewis one. I got every single other one right. We cashed in huge this weekend, insanely big. But anyway, that aside, so first prelim, Orion Kosi, Blood Diamond, went basically exactly how we kind of thought it was gonna be going. Close fight the whole way through, but that Orion Kosi just kind of edged ahead a little bit. Ended up getting it 29-28 in a decision. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of us kind of want to see Blood Diamond succeed. I mean, it's a cool name, Blood Diamond. Also, he trains with City Kickboxing, which is, Adesanya and all of them. So we kind of wanted to see him succeed. Also, kind of want to see Orion Kosi do a little bit better too. He's got his brother in the UFC too. It's kind of cool to see brothers do well together. So we kind of want to see him do well too. But they're both struggling a little bit. But Kosi definitely got the better of this one and got it done 29-28 using that grappling, especially, which is exactly what we thought he was going to do, because Blood Diamond really struggles with that grappling. But you know what? If he gets that under control, really works on the grappling a lot, he could be pretty good. He really could be. But we'll see. We'll see how he does. Second fight, Nikolai Negumereanu and Ihor Potieria, or I don't know if or Potieria, possibly Potieria. I'm not quite sure. I can't remember. We'll just go with Ihor. I went with the experience going into this. Again, I didn't talk about this one last week, but I went with the experienced guy on this side, Negumereanu on this one. Yeah, I didn't think he was going to get a KO like that, but he did it. I did think, though, that he was going to... I think I was thinking about more so the grappling and the clinch work. And that he did do that. He did do that. And that is what he was going to gradually win a decision with. That's how I thought it was going to go, with a decision. But he ended up getting the second round TKO to stop Ihor in his UFC debut there. So Negumereanu definitely getting... I don't want to say... I mean, not that he was bad before, but, he's looking a little bit better, looking improved. And Ihor was a dangerous guy too. I mean, this really could have gone either way. And that's why the odds were suggesting it was this close, because it really was this close. But yeah, Nikolai Negumereanu got it done, got a second round TKO there. Yeah. Like I said, we're not going to go too deep into it. I have my notes here, but again, I think it's just better to just keep it moving and go on to the ones that I had talked about last time, because those are the ones that we're all kind of invested in, I would say. Jocelyn Edwards and Ji Yeon Kim. This was really close. I mean, we kind of expected it to be close, but I thought for sure that the size of Edwards coming down from featherweight going against a flyweight in Ji Yeon Kim, I thought that would have been a much bigger problem for Ji Yeon Kim there. Jocelyn Edwards didn't really use it as much as I thought she would. I thought she was going to go more grappling heavy. I know she's a striker, but I figured, especially with that huge weight advantage, you're going to start throwing around the grappling a little bit more. It just makes sense. But yeah, didn't use it as much as I thought she would, but still easily won the fight 29-28. Well, I thought it was 29-28. Actually, yeah, I thought it was clearly 29-28 personally. The judges all over the place on this one. 29-28, 28-29, so 29-28 the other way for Kim. And then a 30-27 for Edwards in there. I mean, it was pretty close, but yeah, I mean, I thought it was a 29-28. Definitely not a 30-27, and definitely not 29-28 the other way. But hey, whatever. Still got the right result out of it. Yeah. So you can't be too mad about that. And really, I couldn't be too mad about anything. Like I said, I thought everything went the right way this week, except for that Derek Lewis one, which we'll get into again. Michael Morales and Adam Fugit, yeah, it was, I think, again, I'm not really sure how it's pronounced. Fugit, I think. That's what I'm going to go with. Michael Morales, Adam Fugit, also ended in a TKO. I think a lot of people were expecting Morales to kind of just bulldoze straight through him and get a first round finish there. I wasn't quite as convinced. I mean, I still had Morales, of course, but I thought he was gonna do a little, a little bit better than that. I didn't think he was gonna destroy him right away, but I definitely thought it was gonna be a little bit better than what happened, because it was looking a little rough there for Morales at the start. But he did end up getting it going, and he did end up getting that TKO, I should say, in the third round. Next one was one that we actually talked about last time. That was Drakkar Klose and Rafa Garcia. And I said how close this was going to be. I mean, yeah. Let's see what we had here. Yeah, they both were pretty evenly matched. The experience of Klose with wins over Jacasey, Bobby Green, and Giagos, plus his clinch game, that kind of sold it for me. But I did say, just by the slightest edge, because I knew how close this should have been, because Garcia is a lot better than people maybe give him credit for. Both of them started pretty slow, respected the power of each other, but Klose, as usual, was the one moving forward. And that was kind of one of the other reasons why I went in that direction, because he's always the one pressuring forward. Tried to get the clinch going. Got a couple of clinches going. Did hit. I must. I must have mixed up the names there. But anyway, hit Klose with a couple of flurries. But Garcia did pretty well to defend anything significant. I definitely messed up the names there. After 4 minutes of trying, though, Klose did drag Garcia down to the canvas. But it was pretty short-lived as Garcia kept bouncing back to his feet there. But that being said, I mean, you got to think that he did enough to win the first round on the cards there, because he was the one pressuring forward. He was active. He got the takedown, got the clinches going. So had to give it to Klose there for the first round. And the second round kept that going, pushed Garcia into the fence. And from there was a lot more striking going again. Really couldn't keep him into the clinch there. And then actually Garcia was the one who grabbed the takedown of his own. It was a little weird, though, what happened after that. A couple of fairly inactive minutes on the ground there. They were actually brought back to their feet by the ref. I don't really think that was justified. And I'm actually with the comment. I mean, I'm usually with the commentators because they're usually pretty smart with what they say. And honestly, I kind of agree with what they were saying throughout the night, that a couple of the refs were being a little bit trigger happy on standing the fighters up there. I'm actually with Joe Rogan on this one. I mean, he said you should never stand a fighter up. I mean, to a certain extent, I actually kind of agree because he has a point. I mean, really, if you can actually manage to control somebody like that and keep them down on the ground, that's impressive. Like, that's hard to do. So let them do it. I mean, it's not exciting, it's not boring, but it's hard to do to somebody. So if you can do that, why not be allowed to do it? You know? I mean, again, I see what they're doing. You're not advancing position, you're not making it a fight, you're not going for a finish. But like I said, if you're in, like, let's just picture this as a real world scenario. If you're actually fighting somebody and you can just pin them on the ground and keep them down there as long as you want, I mean, that to me, that's winning a fight. You are, you're keeping them under control, winning the fight. I mean, like, that's what security guards do all the time. They basically just sit on somebody. They don't want to hurt them. They just want to stop somebody from doing what they're doing until the cops get there. So, I mean, it's an effective strategy. So I'm kind of with Rogan on that one. It kind of makes sense. If you can manage to do that, you should be allowed to do it. That being said, of course, not not exciting in any way. But anyway, so that aside, the ref did stand people back up more than just this once, and pretty quickly. This was one of the quicker ones. And then using that, Close lit up Garcia with his striking there, but was taken down as the bell rang. With such a close round, I actually thought it really could have gone either way, but with the control time, I went with Garcia. And of course, I mean, if the ref wouldn't have stood them up, you got to remember too that he was just going to keep doing that, and he was going to keep controlling the round on top there. So I had to give it to Garcia there, 1-1 going into the final round. Close came in heavy the final round, hit Garcia with another heavy shot. And feeling encouraged by the takedowns from the earlier rounds, Garcia actually did come back in, tried to go for the takedowns from there, but couldn't really quite keep him down from there. Down there. Close started to pressure forward with the striking again. As the round went on, seemed like Close was really starting to break Garcia down with the pace. And that is kind of what I was getting at earlier with, the experience, more than anything. Because, he's had that experience of being in all those longer fights. So it makes sense. It makes sense that he wasn't going to slow down, and Garcia kind of did start to slow down there, and that ended up being the problem. Garcia was doing well to make it close, but close. But Close was the more active, dangerous fighter. So it was as close as I thought it was going to be, and it really could have gone either way. But I had it 29-28. For Drakkar Close, and the judges agreed, scoring it 29-28. After that, I mean, I think a lot of people were actually surprised by this one. Hamdi Abdelwahab and Don'Tale Mayes. But honestly, like I said, the only one that I lost was Lewis. I actually did have Hamdi Abdelwahab going into this. Again, didn't talk about this last week, but I did have him because Mayes not really the best at grappling and wrestling. He's had a lot of problems with that in the past. Hamdi, Olympic wrestler, he doesn't have the experience. And I watched his fights, and we didn't get to see him in the in the later rounds in those fights. So I mean, really the only question mark for me was, how is he going to be able to handle fighting all 3 rounds if it actually went that far. But, I kind of figured, well, you know what? I mean, he's an Olympic wrestler. He's an Olympic wrestler. He's got the cardio. I mean, wrestlers have insane cardio, especially when they get their wrestling going. So in this case, I just figured, well, he's probably going to be able to do that the entire time, especially as Mays slows down. You would think then that Hamdi would be able to get the wrestling going even more and dominate him there. That's what I thought was going to happen. I didn't think that Hamdi would also be definitely challenging him on the feet there. I mean, he was looking pretty good on the feet there as well, not just in the grappling, but it did end up being the grappling that, of course, put it over the edge and won him the decision. I had it a pretty clear 29-28 for Hamdi there, but we did end up seeing a split decision on that one. And I think, honestly, it actually did come down to that final round. And what happened was, I mean, what was it here? And clinch, easy takedown. Yeah, he had a takedown with 4 minutes left in the round and was controlling him there. And this is where the standing people up got a bit ridiculous. And this is where I was getting I actually got a little bit mad. And the commentators were actually getting pretty upset too, where it was kind of like, well, you don't stand somebody up in that situation, because he was like actually advancing, working for control and dominance and everything along the fence and on the ground and everything. I mean, he was clearly dominating him. So really what was going to end up happening is he was just going to spend the entire final round on top. But instead, the ref completely ruined it. Like, this is exactly how you ruin a fight here. This is the recipe to destroy somebody's career. He, after spending, I think it was 2 or 3 minutes on top, he ended up standing them back up, as, of course, Hamdi was using all of his energy to keep him down. So now you're standing up a wrestler who is completely gassed after just dominating somebody on the ground for the entire round, and you're giving the striker a chance to win. That's literally what he did there. He didn't, he wasn't making it, like, there was literally no reason to stand them back up. It wasn't like he was just holding him there. The only thing that he succeeded in doing was giving Mays his only chance at winning the fight. And completely screwing over Hamdi. And he almost did, because one of the judges did flip their, it would have been unanimous at 29-28, but because of that, one of the judges changed it the other way to 29-28 for Mays, specifically because of that last round, which again would never have happened if the fight wouldn't have been stood up. So I mean, really almost screwed over the entire, it's Hamdi specifically, but the entire fight really, with that one decision. So yeah, refs do better. Normally they're pretty good at that, to be fair. This was honestly the one time recently that I've actually, really in the past 5-6 months, that they actually started standing people up for kind of no reason. Anyway, so 29-28 win for Hamdi there. First Egyptian fighter on the roster. First one to get a win, of course. Pretty inexperienced still, but still grabbed that win. And he's got a long way to go. But my God, is he going to be good if he can really start to pull some things together. Wow. After that, fight number 7, prelim number 2 that I had talked about last time. That was Drew Dober, Rafael Alves. We knew this was going to be insane. We knew this was going to be a good fight, and it was. Making the first big move, throwing a wild spinning kick, was Alves, and that's kind of what we figured he was going to do. He's always crazy to start, but if there's anybody that can handle it, it's Dober, because I picked Dober again because of what he did against McKinney specifically. because McKinney, who we will be talking about later today, by the way, because he's fighting this weekend. I mean, he blitzed him harder than I've seen anybody blitz anybody. I've never seen anybody do anything like that. And he dropped Dober multiple times. I thought Dober was definitely going to be out. But he came back and won. And I mean, if you can do that to somebody like McKinney, you can do that to Alves, which is exactly what I thought he was going to do. I thought he was going to weather that storm, come back in the second or third round, and get a finish, or maybe cruise to the end in a decision. Thankfully, we got a finish out of it, and it was quite the finish. Anyway, we will keep going back into the fight there. Dober did a very good job of avoiding those wild strikes from Alves, because he is actually, you might not think of Dober as the most technical guy, but when you compare him to somebody as wild as Alves, he is definitely the more technical fighter here. Excuse me. Dober managed to dodge it and land a pretty good combo. As they got in close, though, Alves hit him with a pretty good one, dragged Dober down to the ground, started to work for that submission. And this is where I was worried. That's where I was worried. Because I even said going into it, Alves's one chance of winning this fight is if he gets a submission on the ground here. And that is exactly what he started to do. So I was getting a little bit worried there. But Dober managed to get out of it and find himself back on his feet, throwing some wild combos. Dober landed some pretty clean shots near the end of the round. But, seemed like Alves pretty clearly won that opening round. As expected, Dober came back the second round, pressured pretty early against Alves, backed him up into the fence, slowing down quite a bit, which is, again, exactly what we thought he was going to do, because he did that in all of his other fights as well. Alves just couldn't really get that offense going anymore. Dober kept walking forward, landed those combos, backed him into the fence. And after a pretty unfortunate eye poke, I got to say, Alves came out like a demon. Like, seriously. He came out like he did in the first round, really. Throwing everything at Dober. Slipped, but you know what? Dober actually slipped all those combos coming back his way. It did fire up the crowd, though, my God, but it was still a pretty clear round for Dober. I mean, he was just walking away with it at that point. Once again, Dober opened the round with his pressure. Alves tried to stop him with a takedown, but of course, Dober being so fresh at that point, shut it down with no issue there. Then out of nowhere, that's when he got the finish. Dober landed a bomb to the ribs of Alves there, dropped him for a walk-off body shot TKO. You don't see a whole lot of those. Absolutely insane. Crazy, crazy win for Drew Dober. And that's what we like to see. That's the kind of guy he is. Just non-stop entertainment. Unbelievable. And you got to think he's probably going to get another crack at the top 15 again there, thanks to that performance. And I can't wait. After that, it was Alex Moreno and Semmelsberger. I gotta say, going into this, I think people were taking Moreno. I don't think they were taking Moreno seriously, and I don't know why, because he is very technical and very, very smart. So honestly, I thought he was just going to kind of shut down Semmelsberger the entire time and just land some crisp technical shots and win on the cards. And that's exactly what he did, really. I mean, there was a round of struggle in there for a while, that's for sure. I think, what was it, the second round? I can't remember. But yeah, I mean, by the end of it, Semmelsberger's eye was closed. It just seemed pretty clear that Moreno had won. I had it 29-28 for Moreno there. Interestingly, well, the judges did agree. They had it 29-28, 29-28, but somebody actually had it 30-27. And I got to say, even though My pick was Moreno, and I gave him the win here for sure. 30-27 is a bit ridiculous when one of the rounds, what happened here? I'm going to look at where it was here. Yeah. Rained. Yeah. I mean, he found himself on top of Moreno, Semmelsberger did, and just absolutely destroyed him with ground and pound to the point where it was actually close to being stopped. So, I mean, I don't see how you could score that round for Moreno. And it's not like he was doing a crazy amount before that, Moreno. So I think that was a pretty clear 29-28. But hey, weird scorecards, whatever. As long as the right person wins, it's okay. It's okay. The main card now, that opened up with Magomed Ankalaev and Anthony Smith. I had Ankalaev by decision going into this, only because, Smith is better than people think he is. I mean, really, he is one of the most underrated people in the division. I really think he is, because he's a lot better than people think he really is. But that being said, the styles just didn't match up. So I was giving Ankalaev the clear advantage here. By decision, though. By decision. What we didn't expect, though, is that Smith was going to injure himself. Yeah, because that's really what ended up really screwing him over in this one. As expected, both of them took their time early. Careful not to make the early mistake there. But after 4 minutes of pretty much nothing, Smith seemed to slip forward. Seemed to slip, I should say, and found himself on his back. And we later found out, that was because I think it was because he blocked a kick. I believe that's what happened. He blocked a kick, or he ended up throwing a kick. No, actually, no, I think it was that he blocked a kick. And after that, was not the same. And we found out, of course, that he ended up, I believe it was his ankle, he broke his ankle, or I think that's what it ended up being, or fractured his ankle or leg or something. It was something to do with that. I can't remember quite what it was, but it was because of that checked kick there. And yeah, really struggled with that, especially when you're fighting somebody who moves a lot like Ankalaev, and somebody who fights in that kind of way. Like, you just can't fight somebody like Ankalaev with one leg. I mean, it's just not going to work. Anyway, what was I saying? Even though Ankalaev didn't jump on top of him there, it really didn't look good. With that, I mean, the judges could have gone either way, but I kind of gave it to Ankalaev, because nothing had really happened outside of that, honestly. Yeah, so because of a couple of extra strikes, and because of the way that round ended, I kind of had to give it to Ankalaev, really. This time, in the second round, I should say, probably because of that ankle, Smith went in deep on a takedown. You can't get the striking going, especially when you've got that kind of situation going. So really tried to go hard for the takedown. Smith was pretty close to getting it, but Ankalaev managed to position himself on top of Smith. Again, I'm sure the ankle didn't help there. And after a couple of heavy blows, the ref had to call it. And Smith made it pretty clear after that he actually thought he had broken his leg or his ankle, and then he couldn't stand up. He actually couldn't stand up even when they were giving the decision and all that. It was a rough time. You could tell it was pretty bad. Not as bad as Aspinall. That looked much worse, but it still looked pretty bad there. Yeah. Magomed Ankalaev, second round TKO. Not how you wanted the fight to end, because you don't want it to end because of an injury like that. I mean, it didn't end because of the injury, but you got to think, if Smith wasn't injured, he probably would have done a lot better. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, I mean, and he couldn't really even get anything going. I mean, he's usually amazing on the ground, usually goes for submissions and stuff, but I have a feeling he couldn't really do that because he works a lot of submissions with his legs involved as well. So I just kind of think he couldn't really get anything going in the end because of that. But you know what? Ankalaev still clearly a contender for the next title shot. I mean, there's really not a whole lot of people in the light heavyweight division near the top, except for, of course, Hill, who we're going to be seeing this week, who we're going to be talking about in a little bit. But yeah, but you know what? I mean, yeah, I think the next fight would make sense to be Yuri, but it seems like we might be seeing a rematch between Glover and Yuri first. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens with that. But if not, I think Ankalaev, I mean, it would just make sense. I mean, there's really nobody else, like I said. I mean, yes, there's Blachowicz. I mean, yeah, you could give him the title shot, but again, he actually kind of won because Rakic was injured as well. So it's kind of, and he was losing that fight before that. So, I mean, do you give somebody a title shot off of that? I don't think so, but I don't know. I don't know. It's just a weird, I mean, it's a weird division. There's so many weird things going on. Who knows? Who knows? But I think what would make the most sense would be Ankalaev and Yuri. That being said, I honestly don't think it would be that close. I mean, Ankalaev is good, but I mean, Yuri, just based on the striking alone, that's going to be a problem. That's going to be a real problem. And I mean, if he really actually starts to work on the grappling too, to work the grappling in with Ankalaev, he's so big and so strong that he really could have a good chance here. I mean, and remember the fact that he was doing well against Glover and he ended up submitting Glover. So I mean, if he can do that, he could easily do the same thing to Ankalaev. I mean, there's no reason why he couldn't be. So I mean, yeah, I don't know. I think that's the way to go, but we'll see. And you know what? If we do see Glover and Yuri run it back, honestly, I think the next real step would make sense is Ankalaev and Blachowicz. I mean, like I said, Blachowicz didn't really earn a title shot with that. I think that's pretty fair to say. So you know, if we're waiting, why not make that happen? And then it provides, you know, it gives us that clear title contender there. Of course, I mean, then of course you're gonna have probably, you know, maybe Hill on the other side of this too. If he gets a KO, especially if he gets a KO, you got to think he's also in that conversation. But again, we're getting too far into it. You know, I mean, that's something we could discuss next week after we see what happens with Hill and Santos here. You can probably see where I'm going with my pick though later. But yeah. Anyway, after that was Alexandre Pantoja and Alex Perez. Going into this, I even said Pantoja by finish. I mean, he's so insanely good. I mean, that's really the only thing that you can say. He's just unbelievably good everywhere. He's a crazy powerful striker, but some of the best grappling skills I've ever seen. Seriously. I mean, he's so unbelievably good. Like watching it happen with especially this fight. I mean, it's just so crazy to watch, especially if you appreciate that kind of grappling and jujitsu game, which I really do. I love to see it, especially when somebody is really, really, really good at it, because it is unbelievable. Like it's, I know I keep saying it's unbelievable, but it really is. Like to think that somebody's capable of doing that to not only just anybody, like, I mean, sure, he could do that to me. I mean, you know, he could do that to some random guy on the street, but to do it to somebody that actually knows what they're doing and who is also a top 5 contender, to just take their back like that and just submit them easily like that, that is truly unbelievable. Like, you wouldn't think that that would even be something that's possible. Like, that is how crazy it is to me that he did that. So, yeah, we'll get into it, obviously. But, I mean, there's really not a whole lot to say because I kind of just said it. I mean, Pantoja landed the bombs early. And right from there, you know, Perez did fire back. He tried to defend himself there. But Pantoja, as always, used that momentum, jumped on Perez's back, and worked for that submission in less than a couple minutes in, and that was it. He had already gotten the submission. Didn't even have to get him to the ground. That's how good he is. So yeah, I mean, what after this? I mean, we're going to talk about this actually, obviously, at the end of this segment when we talk about Brandon Moreno and, of course, Figgy. So it seems like that's what we're seeing with the title shot. But I mean, if we don't see that, or if Figgy has to wait a while, Moreno even said he doesn't want to wait. And he's not even sure if Figgy can make weight again. And honestly, I was questioning that myself before. So I even said that in a couple of the previous episodes, if you look back on it. So I think really the obvious matchup, at least, from the outside, to me at least, would be Pantoja and Moreno. I don't think there's any other matchup to make, except of course for Figgy. But I mean, are we going to see that? I don't know, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. After that, Derek Lewis and Sergey Pavlovich. I mean, there's not a whole lot to say about this other than what a load of shit. I mean, seriously, there's literally nothing else to say. I mean, it was just so blatantly wrong what happened. I mean, yeah. And, it doesn't happen a whole lot. So I'm not saying, I'm not calling for Dan Marigliotta's head or anything like that, the ref who stopped it. But I mean, it was a bad stoppage. And I think he realized that afterwards. I mean, he's a good ref. I don't want to shit on him. He obviously just made a huge mistake, though. And I think everybody else agreed. And Dana White even said himself, if he was the ref, he probably would have stopped it too. And I might have even stopped it too. I don't know. I mean, you don't know when you're in there, because it did look like a bad fall that Lewis took. But you know what? He got back up right away without even hesitating. He got back up right away and was going to start fighting. So, I mean, you could tell that he was clearly still in it. But anyway, yeah, Lewis made the first move, hit Pavlovich with a couple of big ones. Sadly, that did put him in range, and he got lit up by Pavlovich pretty bad. Unfortunately, he did get back up and was dropped by Sergey. And like I said, that is where the very clearly early stoppage came in. Yeah, to a roar of thunderous boos. That is exactly what happened there. And I mean, like I said, I'm sure Dan Marigliotta realized pretty quickly the mistake he made there, but I've got to do this anyway. Dan Marigliotta, you blew it. You really, really blew this one. I'm sad to say. Yeah. I mean, who's to say that Lewis was going to come back and necessarily, land a couple of big shots of his own and maybe come back and win? We don't know that. I mean, maybe it was also still just 10, 15 seconds away from being stopped anyway. I mean, Pavlovich could have easily followed that up with another couple of huge ones to really drop him for good. I don't know. We'll never know. We'll never know if that was going to happen. But I will say, when you actually look at it being replayed, Lewis was actually really only punched about 2 or 3 times in that. He actually dodged about 80 or 90% of what was being thrown at him. It just didn't look like it. So it looked a lot worse than it actually was if you go back and watch it. And then, of course, he did get right back up right away. Didn't look even phased remotely by that. So, I mean, he was going to come back and probably land a couple of quick ones right away. But again, was he going to be able to come back and even last another 30 seconds or a minute? We'll never know. Excuse me. But he probably would have. Anyway, so that was the only one that I got wrong the entire night. Would have been nice to see at least what would have happened. Because you know what? If it would have kept going and Pavlovich would have gotten a fair knockout like Tuivasa did or something like that, hey, I'm all for admitting that, hey, that was a bad pick. But you know what? This was more so just wildly unlucky. So yeah, first round TKO, but was it really? Not really, but still counts. And we move on. Co-main event. We said we were going to talk about it. Oh, I mean, of course we were going to talk about it. Brandon Moreno, Kai Kara France. I specifically said Brandon Moreno is going to get a finish here. But to be honest, I was going for a submission. I was going for a submission all day. There's no way I was going for a KO on this one. That's for sure. Especially since, in the last couple fights, Kai Kara France, he's struggled. Well, actually, mainly just the last one, I guess, because he hasn't faced that many grapplers. I thought for sure, because against Askarov specifically, he was really struggling with the grappling. He really was. He was not doing well. And as the fight went on, it was kind of getting worse. So I figured, as the fight went on with Moreno, considering Moreno submitted Figueiredo, I mean, he had the clear grappling advantage and he just didn't really get the chance to use it. I mean, he was trying to get takedowns, but kind of kept getting stopped, and then kind of also realized, you know what? I'm winning this fight. I'm doing well on the feet anyway. I mean, Kai Kara France was doing well, but, Moreno was still doing well on the feet anyway. So, you can't get the fight to the ground with the takedowns. Why not just keep it going on the feet? Anyway, Moreno was the one landing some pretty good jabs early, as we kind of, maybe expected a little bit that he was going to do pretty well in the stand-up, of course. Kai Kara France did land the first big shot, but that allowed Moreno to clinch up and go for a takedown, which again is exactly what we thought was going to happen, because I also mentioned how tough Moreno is, and if he couldn't get finished by the punches of Figueiredo, you're not going to get stopped by Kai Kara France, because although Kai is incredible, he does have a lot of power, he's got a lot of stand-up skill. I mean, Figueiredo, he really should not be a flyweight. I mean, he's so insanely big that he clearly weighs at least 145 when he's fighting at flyweight, which is how that's even possible. I have no idea how he makes weight. So, I mean, his power is just unmatched. His, honestly, submission skills might be unmatched, except for, of course, Pantoja. Excuse me. So yeah, we knew Moreno wasn't gonna have a problem with that. Really, it was just a matter of, can he get enough offense going to win enough rounds if he didn't get the finish? That was really the only concern. But even then, honestly, wasn't really all that concerned. Anyway, it was pretty tight in the action. I was saying, and honestly, I didn't even have a clear winner after the first round. I really didn't. I did not even write down who I thought won the first round, because I thought it was that dead even. So it wasn't surprising to me that that Kai got the he actually did get a couple rounds on some of the judges' cards, and that really isn't all that surprising to me, because it really was dead even. So whichever way the judges wanted to go with it, it made sense to me. The second round did open up pretty slowly, same as the first. But Moreno pushed Kai into the fence there. Couldn't quite get the takedown there, but he did land a couple of nasty elbows in there before letting him go. And that was when Moreno really started to shine. He landed a couple more combos, threatened another takedown. And Kai was doing well to defend it there and land some pretty good leg kicks, actually. But I mean, I thought it was pretty clear that Moreno did win the second round. By the way, he did not win it on at least one of the cards, which I think is a little bit insane there. But yeah, I thought it was at worst for Moreno, it was tied. Excuse me. And he could have been up 2-0. Like I said, it was close. The third round, very interesting start here. Moreno threw a bad kick and found himself on the canvas, with Kai actually landing some pretty heavy ground and pound. Luckily for Moreno, though, he did get out of it and moved back to his feet, but he was cut open by a nasty, nasty elbow from there. And Kai really started to open up from there, obviously seeing the blood, of course, getting excited, landed some more combos. After a bit of time to recover, Moreno started to pressure hard again and move back into some combos of his own. Then, out of nowhere, Miranda. Wow, what am I doing with these names today? Moreno landed a nasty kick to the body, dropped Kai immediately, straight onto the canvas there. From there, just really a formality with the ground and pound. The ref had to stop it. And once again, we have Brandon Moreno holding the belt. It's the interim belt, of course, but still, I mean, he's still got the belt. And a lot of people actually think that he actually holds the belt in the first place, that he won the last one. I'm 50-50 on it. I really could be convinced either way. And I even watched it again. I didn't watch every single second of it. I skipped some parts here and there, but you know what? There's an argument either way. Yeah. Anyway, so third round TKO for Brandon Moreno. And we just talked about this after talking about Pantoja. I mean, yes, Figueiredo came into the cage, which was entertaining, but then I actually kind of agreed with Dana White after, where I was like, you know what? It was actually kind of disrespectful because Moreno was having his moment. I mean, he won the interim belt, thanking his family, his wife, his kids, talking about them, and then all of a sudden this piece of shit comes in the octagon with his own belt after basically having his fight canceled for probably, basically missing weight. Like, he couldn't make weight essentially. So, I mean, and then especially with the history behind them, yes, it was actually disrespectful. But you know what? It was also good TV and it was good entertainment. I liked it. And I thought it was pretty entertaining. Straight out of the WWE there, really. That's all that was. But yeah, I mean, and also they let their animosity go. They were actually pretty okay with each other, and they seem to be okay with, going into the final fight, the fourth fight, the quadrilogy, as, I don't know about friends, but at least friendlier, and respectful towards each other. Like, that's a better way of saying it, I guess. They respect each other now. Yeah. So, yeah, that seems to be what's next. Moreno wants to do it in December, and Figgy seems to be okay with that. But he wants it in Brazil. Figgy wants it in Brazil. And I mean, the UFC has already said multiple times that that's just not in the cards. They do want to go to Brazil, and they talked about this actually in the press conference after with Dana, of course. But he specifically made a point of saying, like, definitely not, it's not this year, but next year at some point they do want to go to Brazil. So I mean, what does that mean for this title fight? I have no idea. Are we going to see this in December or November, and then we would move it to, I mean, the obvious choice, would be MSG or maybe even Vegas again, or somewhere like that, especially if they can find somewhere that has that huge Latino background, which is what they did with, well, this time, Texas, and also, of course, Arizona. Somewhere in California would be even good if they went to LA or something. There's a lot of options. Or again, of course, why not just MSG, of course, because they are going back to MSG. So you could do that. You could do that as well. So who knows? Maybe we'll see that this year, or maybe, like I said, if we want to make that happen, we wait for Brazil possibly later, early next year, possibly. And we'll see that happen there. And instead, we'll see Pantoja. We'll see Pantoja get his shot again against Moreno, which, by the way, he beat Moreno the first time. So this could get real interesting real soon, depending on what Figgy decides to do here. And honestly, I'm not even kidding. I actually think that if Pantoja and Moreno fight and Pantoja wins, I don't know what that means for Figgy. I mean, he might legitimately just call it a day at flyweight and just go up to bantamweight. Because why risk it? Why risk it against Pantoja when you're already clearly having problems getting down to the division, when you've got the other most dangerous person in flyweight history other than Moreno trying to fight you. So I don't know. I don't know how that would work out, honestly, if that happened. And I could easily see that happening. So lots of interesting things here at flyweight. I can't wait to see what they're doing here, because it really is one of my favorite divisions, because they're all so good. They're so good. And I don't know why people don't talk about them more. Not even just, Moreno and Figgy. Yeah, of course. But Pantoja going into this, nobody was really talking about them. I was, because I watched the tape. I knew how good Pantoja and Perez were. I knew this was going to be a great fight. But yeah, people just don't take it seriously. I don't know what it is, but they're all just everybody in the top 10. I mean, the flyweights are just so good, and it's so entertaining. It is crazy. Anyway, closing out the night was Amanda Nunes, Juliana Pena. And I mean, there were a lot of questions going into this, of course. I mean, we talked a lot about this last time, and the opinion that I was taking, the direction that I was running with this was I had to believe Nunes. I really did. Um, some people say, some people listen to her interviews and think, oh, she's just being cocky. But honestly, if you really listen to what she's saying, I don't think I've ever heard her say anything, at least that I've seen. I mean, there's a lot of interviews. I'm sure she's said some crazy shit out there before. But honestly, I've never seen her say anything that wasn't accurate. Like, I just honestly believe, I mean, she's just right every single time that I've seen her anyway. So, I mean, when she was being honest and she said, hey, listen, I should have pulled out of the last fight. It was the worst I've ever been. Nina, her wife, Nina Nunes, told her to pull out of the fight, and she didn't do it. She didn't believe her because the coaches were still going with it. And she said in the interview, if the coaches would have told her that to pull out of the fight, that she would have done it. That tells you right there, there's something wrong. And she even specifically said she wasn't working her normal cardio. She was working only upper body cardio because her legs were still messed up, or knee, I think it was. And then the whole COVID situation that she had COVID, wasn't recovered going into it. So already had bad cardio because of COVID, then couldn't get back into her cardio because of her surgery or whatever it was. So, and then coming into this 100% now. By the way, even at, I would say probably 50% of what she's normally capable of, she still dropped Pena twice in the opening round of the last fight. So, I mean, that really just tells you, I mean, that's why I thought going into this, I thought Nunes was going to come in here and get a pretty easy finish with the striking. I mean, because even before, Pena was getting knocked down a couple of times. So I thought this was going to be a straight up assassination in the first round or second round. But I mean, this really was just an example of how tough Pena is, because Nunes honestly looked pretty much as good as she's ever been, maybe better than a lot of her other performances, more impressive, I would say, than a lot of her performances, because she really did come into this 100%. And yeah, that's the way I was going with it. I'm so glad that I went with that. Anyway, we don't have to talk about it quite a bit. I mean, it was the same thing over and over. I mean, she grabbed 3 takedowns in the same round, or 3 knockdowns in the same round. I don't know how many knockdowns happened in this fight, but it was a lot. It was a lot. It was a record. It actually was a record. I don't know what the record ended up being from this. It was either 4 or 5, maybe. Could have even been more, actually. And you know what? She could have kept doing it. I even believe what she said after. She said, you know what? I could have grabbed a finish, but I wanted to prove to everybody that I was better than her on the ground as well. And you know what? I believe it, because she clearly intentionally stopped striking and intentionally went to the ground on purpose. Like, it was wildly obvious that was what she was trying to do. Because she was still, I mean, clearly dominating her on the feet, but she made a point in the third, I think it was either the third round or the fourth round, to purposely start going for takedowns. She didn't have to. She just wanted to. And again, it was pretty obvious that that's what she was trying to do. And she dominated her down there too. And yes, it was exciting and it did look close. If you really, on the face of it, when you were watching it, it was a really exciting back and forth fight. But when you actually think about it, excuse me, and if you actually dissected it a little bit more, you'd realize, oh, wait a second. Not only was she dominating on the feet, clearly, she was also dominating on the ground literally every second of the fight. Like, Peña only had a couple of moments where she threatened a submission, but Nunes never really looked in danger except for one moment. And she even said, honestly, like, I never tap to arm bars because I just have really strong arms. And you know what? It looked like it. She didn't even look like she was thinking of tapping, honestly. So, yeah, I mean, it was really just dominance from start to finish. And against the only person that's challenged her since Valentina. So, I mean, there's no question, absolutely no question that Amanda Nunes is clearly the best female fighter on the planet. There's absolutely no doubt. And if you don't think that, you have not been paying attention. I mean, seriously, like, there's literally nobody else that even comes close at this point, especially in the UFC. I mean, we don't know what would happen with Kayla Harrison if she came in. I would imagine that Nunes would just wipe the floor with her. I'm assuming that's what I would guess. But you know what? We don't know. Anyway, but especially in the UFC, there is literally no competition. And I mean, Bisping even said, like, I don't think I saw this headline actually. That Bisping even said, I don't even think we need the trilogy for Valentina and Nunes because Nunes is clearly better. And I'd have to agree with the statement that Nunes is clearly better because I actually agree with Nunes once again that I think Valentina lost her fight too. I think she lost. I think she clearly lost against Tyler or I think it was Tyler Santos, right? Yeah. I think she clearly lost that fight. And Nunes, that's exactly what Nunes was saying. So, I mean, if she was struggling with somebody who, I mean, yeah, Tyler Santos is good, but really the only reason she won that is because she's a heavy grappler and she's way bigger than Valentina. And what is Nunes? She is also a fantastic grappler who is much heavier than Valentina. Plus, she's also got the size advantage and insane striking. So, I mean, it wouldn't be competitive. Would it be the fight to make? Honestly, yeah, because there's nobody else in the entire UFC that could do anything that's entertaining. Actually, that's not true. There's only two people. There's only two people that I have thought of, and I wrote them down here, that would even remotely make sense for Nunes next, besides Valentina. And that would be, I mean, yeah, you could give Tyler Santos the chance, to be honest. I would give her the title shot right now. But there's also Ketlin Vieira, who actually is at bantamweight, because Tyler Santos is at flyweight, but she could easily be a bantamweight because she's so big. Yeah, that you could see either Ketlin Vieira or Tyler Santos getting a title shot next. And honestly, what I think they should do, because they're saying, well, maybe we should get the featherweight title going again, 145. Honestly, I think the way to go is to go with Ketlin Vieira at featherweight, because there's no names at featherweight. I mean, like, don't kid yourself. There's nobody actually actively fighting at featherweight, except for the only person I can think of that regularly does it is, I think it's Ramona Pascual. I think she's the only one that I can think of. And then, you've got some people that fight at 145 that are in the bantamweight rankings, like Ketlin Vieira, but you're still talking about people that can easily make 135. There's really nobody except for, like I said, maybe Ramona Pascual, who could not make 135. And even actually Jocelyn Edwards, who we talked about today, could easily keep keep fighting at 145. But anyway, so yeah, to me, I actually think the next title shot, if it's not Valentina, if we're not setting up that trilogy to close out that dynamic, I would say Ketlin Vieira is the obvious choice. Make it at featherweight to keep that belt going. Or Tyler Santos moves up to bantamweight and gets the fight there. And that's, of course, assuming that we don't get Kayla Harrison to join the UFC, even just if it's just for 1 year or, just one season away from the PFL, joins the UFC to take on Amanda Nunes and, maybe a couple of other people to show people like, hey, this is Kayla Harrison's pretty good too. I could see that happening. Or Cyborg was even saying she wants a rematch. To be honest, I don't think she's going to get it because it has nothing to do with the the marketability of that fight. They honestly just don't like Cyborg as a person, and that is why they cut her. So I just don't see business-wise that's ever going to happen because they don't like her. And fair enough, because she was saying some pretty wild shit, and you can't do that with Dana White. You can't talk shit about Dana White, especially for no reason. Like you can't do that. So, that's another option too, but don't think that's ever going to happen. Anyway, we still took an hour to do this whole thing. My God. But I mean, but I don't even know what to say at this point. KO of the night, Brandon Moreno. We got on a lot of tangents. Let's just say that. Brandon Moreno, KO of the night. Alexandre Pantoja. I think he was actually the only submission of the night, but he was going to get it no matter what anyway. And then brawl of the night, I actually had Juliana Peña and Amanda Nunes because even though it wasn't the closest fight, it was the most entertaining one. Because I was on the edge of my seat the whole time, like, oh my God, like, is Peña going to get a submission here? Oh, whoa, and then all the knockdowns. Oh my God, amazing. And you love to see, if every female fight was like this, if even honestly a quarter of the women's fights were like this, women's MMA would be way more popular, because fights like this, unbelievable. So yeah, this is what we need. This is what we need. And that's actually, that's why it was headlining. A lot of people were saying, oh, really? Like, we're headlining a pay-per-view with the rematch of Peña and Nunes? Like, yeah. Yeah. Because we knew it was going to be this crazy. Or we were going to see, Peña, or either one. Honestly, no matter what happened, we knew it was going to be something crazy. Either you were going to have another insane fight, or you were going to have Peña getting a crazy upset, or you were going to have Nunes grabbing an insane an insane KO. So we knew this was going to be good. Anyway, that was the fight of the night for me. The UFC went with Kai Kara-France and Moreno. Honestly, there were a lot of dull moments in that, so I didn't really see that, but, fair enough. And then I had two most valuable fighters this time. I had, Hamdi Abdelwahab, of course, because huge underdog, not experienced really at all in MMA. And he came in and really dominated this fight, to be honest, except for a couple of moments here and there, and showed that he's more than just a wrestler too. He really is. And he can go all 3 rounds. There are not a whole lot of heavyweights that can do that. That is not easy to do. It's not easy to do for anybody. I couldn't do it. But to do that, weighing 260 pounds, that's crazy to have the cardio to do 3 rounds like that. He's got the wrestling base, which is rare in heavyweight as well. He's going to do some serious damage in the heavyweight division if he can put it all together. Because I think, he still needs to improve, especially the fight IQ. He needs to improve the stand-up a little bit. But seriously, this guy's the real deal. And also the added emphasis, of course, that he is the first Egyptian fighter in the UFC. So there's also that too. That was the other reason why I gave it to him. And the other most valuable fighter, who in the entire UFC, especially in women's MMA, is more valuable than Amanda Nunes. My God. Wow. So, I mean, the only two-time double champ in UFC history, now in, I believe, the top 5 for title wins. I don't know how many other records she's broken. And by the way, of course, that includes male and female in the title fight wins. She is now, I think, just behind Anderson Silva by 1. You know, John Jones is up there. Usman is up there, I think, too. Or is he up there? I don't know if he's had that many title fight wins. But anyway, yeah. So yeah, and I mean, she's in that kind of conversation now, and she dominated, literally complete domination for 5 straight rounds. Got a record number of knockdowns, and I mean, like, what else? What else could she possibly do at this point other than just keep those records going, winning easier fights again? Like, this is probably one of the harder fights she was going to get. Tyler Santos. I mean, anyway, there are still some good fights to go. Tyler Santos, Ketlin Vieira, and another Shevchenko one. Those 3, Kayla Harrison, Cyborg. There's lots of options out there. But you know what? I mean, if she looks like she did this weekend, I genuinely believe there is literally not a single person that could beat her. I really do not think there is a single woman out there on this planet that could beat Amanda Nunes if she fights like she did this past Saturday. If she takes it easy and doesn't take it seriously again like she did before, yes, she could be beaten, of course. But there is nobody right now in any promotion, in any combat sport that I can think of that could beat Nunes right now. So to me, clear choice for a bonus for the most valuable fighter. And she is the epitome of the most valuable fighter. Wow, that was a long one. And then we've got, before we take a quick break, we will talk quickly about the Contender Series. And I can't believe I've already taken up over an hour and we're not even on this card yet. Wow. We'll go through it fairly quick though. I mean, actually there were a lot of first round finishes, so it's going to be quick either way. But yeah, I mean, just incredible night for the Contender Series. The best one I've ever seen. I mean, granted, I've only been watching it this year, last year, and a little bit the year before that. I didn't get to see every week the year before that because it just wasn't on TV and I didn't have Fight Pass. So it's not because I didn't want to. It's because I'm in Canada and that's just what happened, But now I have Fight Pass, and of course they were showing it on TV anyway. So of course I'm going to watch it every single week. And this was by far, I would say, the best event they've ever had, following clearly the worst event they've ever had, but not even close. At least, again, out of the ones that I've seen the past 2 years. I will go back and watch all the other ones, I will say, because I'm a huge fan of the Contender Series. I'll probably even do that with the Ultimate Fighter, the original ones, just because I'm a huge UFC. I'm a huge fight fan in general. But anyway, it opened up with Billy Goff and Shimon Smotritsky. Shimon actually came... Shimon! Little Michael Jackson in there. Wow, stupid. Shimon came in actually off of another Contender Series loss. Not straight off of it. He did have a fight in between there. But yeah, and Billy Goff came in off of being the double champ in, I believe it was CES MMA. I did watch it. I did watch the title fights because, of course, I do make my picks for the Contender Series as well. I had Jonathan Groff. I had Billy Goff going into this one, but it was pretty close. I mean, a lot of these fights on this card were actually, all of them were pretty close, on paper at least. Anyway, Goff opened heavy, lighting Smotritsky up with some big shots, kind of what I thought was going to happen. The tables did turn pretty quick, though. It was not looking good after Goff got hit by a massive head kick, got dropped. But you know what? After that, he fully recovered and took control from there. Goff recovered, really started to take his offense back. And as the round went on, Goff started to land shot after shot, stumbled Shimon back into the fence. And knowing he was doing some real damage, Goff kept the pressure going and let loose combo after combo, probably like 30 unanswered strikes until Smotritsky hit the canvas and the ref stopped the action for a first round TKO victory there. And I mean, of course, you were going to see a contract there. Yeah, I mean, a little bit of adversity with the head kick, but other than that, just incredible performance. And I mean, like I said, he's the double champ in that promotion, which I think it was CES. Actually I did. Yeah, I wrote it down. CES. Double champ there. So I mean, no brainer. Contract guaranteed, locked up right there. Knew that was going to happen. Second fight, Waldo Cortes-Acosta and Danilo Suzart. Going into this one, I got to say, the odds were heavily favoring Waldo Cortes-Acosta, of course, being especially because of the reach. But I wasn't hugely convinced because he honestly didn't look that good in the tape that I watched. So I was about 50-50 on this one, but I did end up going with, I mean, when you've got that much height and reach, especially at heavyweight, you've probably got the advantage anyway. So that's the direction I went with it. And I'm glad I did, because that is exactly what happened here. He used that huge reach to his advantage, landed massive, massive jabs. Suzart was struggling with that reach really bad, but he was landing some good ones to respond. That being said, Waldo landed some huge shots, ended up in a clinch with Suzart along the fence, and it actually looked like Suzart was going to push through to the end of the round, but they separated from the clinch, and that let Cortes finish off with some just insane output there. You know what? I mean, again, clearly a contract. I mean, you got a first round TKO. If you get a first round KO win, you're getting a contract. I mean, it's, like that's guaranteed. But that being said, and Dana White even said it himself, he's got a long way to go. He's not the cleanest, heaviest guy in the division. He's really not. And he does have some reach, and he's got some decent boxing skills. So, I mean, he's not going to be challenging the top 15 anytime soon. There's no way. Not anytime soon at all. But if he can, full time go with this now, because he's got the contract. If he can just dedicate his time to really developing everything, putting it all together, avoiding a lot of the strikes that are coming back at him, especially using that reach to his advantage and getting some grappling in there as well, he's going to be really good. But yeah, not near the top of my power rankings this week, because just not quite there yet, but still obviously enough to earn the contract in my mind. Third fight, excuse me. Francis Fire Marshall, new nickname, incredible. Honestly, one of the best nicknames I've ever heard. I mean, that's a complete no-brainer. Francis Marshall is a firefighter. So, I mean, right away, Bisping and Sanko, we won't say who came up with the idea first. Bisping was the one who said he came up with it. I'm not going to argue with it, but they both came up with Fire Marshall. How is his nickname not Fire? His last name's Marshall. He's a fireman. You gotta go with Francis Fire Marshall. So I believe we've now solidified that as a nickname for him, which is incredible. And he ended up going and beating Connor Matthews in a very tight fight. And I will say, going into this, I did have Matthews, but my God, it was very back and forth. It was really, really close when I was making my picks. I mean, they were both 5-0, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, 5-0, they were both. And they were both really similar in the tape that I was watching. The only reason I had Matthews is because he was a lot harder in the first round. So I thought he might even grab an early finish just because of his pace, his early pace. Plus, I figured, well, you know what? He can probably actually keep that up in going into the second round at least. So I figured he was going to probably win on the cards if he didn't get an early KO. But that's not quite what happened here, but it was really, really close. Marshall made the first move, but they both exploded into a flurry quick. Matthews pressuring Marshall back into the fence early, exactly what I thought. Like I said, early pressure. But Marshall responded with a quick takedown. Matthews got back up quick, started to land some more combos. And then Marshall, of course, trying to work more with the grappling, tried to pin Matthews into the fence, trying to shut down that pace, really. After some more striking, Matthews got clipped by something and started to wobble. I honestly didn't even see what he got clipped by. It was so quick and out of nowhere. I didn't even see it. Taking advantage of that situation, though, Marshall finally got the takedown he wanted and took his back, and clearly winning the round for Marshall there, especially thanks to that moment, of course. The second round, Marshall came in hard, wobbled Matthews early, multiple times actually, slammed him down to the canvas again, and from there, Matthews threatened a heel hook, forcing Marshall to stand back up. Sadly for Matthews, though, he was taken down once again, started to get shredded by some ground and pound. And after some pretty good offense there from Marshall, clearly won the second round on the cards there too. But again, Matthews was having his moments. I mean, I say clearly won, but it's not like it wasn't back and forth. Like, he did have his own moments too. It wasn't completely one-sided. Final round. Both men slowed down in the final round, which did favor Matthews. He started to get some good shots here and there. Marshall was still the one getting the better of the exchanges, though. He landed some bombs, really trying to get the finish. And of course, that is what we want. That is what we want in the Contender Series. So again, putting out a good message there, trying to get that contract. Yeah, Matthews did put up a great fight the whole time, but you know what? It was just fairly clear at that point that Marshall had gotten the fight, and I would say pretty clearly won a contract there. And for the full season, for the first time this season, we actually saw a full 3-round fight that was actually explosive and entertaining the entire way through. And both of them had a chance. Both of them had a chance to grab a finish there. And honestly, this was a situation where I actually could have seen that both fighters could have gotten a contract. I wasn't sure, maybe Dana still isn't feeling hugely generous, or that generous, at least, to make a 6th contract, or at least, an extra contract for both the fighters. But it seemed possible. It seemed possible. At the very least, we kind of knew Marshall was going to get a contract here as well. The fourth fight was Shannon Ross and Vinicius Salvador. Going into it, I mean, Shannon Ross was the heavy favorite, and I'm not really, it was mainly because nobody really knew who Salvador was, because there wasn't really a whole lot of tape on him. I couldn't really find a whole lot of tape on him. And when you looked at his record, it was mostly one of those padded records where you see the person's fight. They fought a lot of people who have either never really fought, or they've fought a lot of people that, they're not necessarily that good. They've got a record of like 3-3 or 1-3, 2-5, or they've got huge records where it's like 10 wins and 50 losses. It's stuff like that. So when you see a lot of that, it's kind of like, also added in the fact that he's huge. Like, he's really tall. I think he's 5'10" or something like that. So, I mean, for flyweight, that is ridiculous. That is an absurd height for flyweight. So personally, when I saw that, I was like, well, if you're flyweight and you're 5'9", 5'10", you're not going to have a lot of power. That's just physically impossible, because you can't You can't cut that much weight to do that and still be that height. It's just not possible. So to me, that's what I thought going into it. So I was pretty confident about Ross, especially considering Ross looked pretty good in the tape and he was doing pretty well in other promotions. So I thought Ross was the clear one here, but I mean, really all we saw was basically a freak of nature. Honestly, that's what I saw. I mean, he really is that tall and that powerful, and I'm blown away by it, by the entire prospect of it. I could not believe it when I was watching it. I freely admit when I am wrong here, and I was definitely wrong about that. And yeah, I even thinking about it still, it's crazy to me that somebody that's that tall can make 125 pounds and still have huge knockout power. I just can't believe it. It's unbelievable to me. Bantamweight, I would understand. Flyweight, that's crazy to me. Crazy. We won't go too crazy into it, but yeah, I mean, he did very well, multiple knockdowns. And I mean, really, it was also a testament to how tough Shannon Ross is, because he took some punishment there and he still made it to the second round and still gave it a pretty good fight. And this was actually another scenario where I could have seen, a second contract for Shannon Ross there. But again, are you going to get a contract if you get finished in the second round? Probably not. But when they're both, Shannon Ross is a fantastic flyweight and we did need flyweights. So from that logic, I could have seen them going with it again. But you know what? I'm sure he'll get another chance. I really am. I think we'll see Shannon Ross here back again. And same with actually Matthews, probably. We'll probably see Matthews again too, honestly. Yeah. So second round TKO for Vinicius Salvador. That was another obvious no-brainer for for a contract there. The final one, Chris Duncan, Charlie Campbell. I had Chris Duncan going into this because, I mean, he was already on the Contender Series, fought, honestly, one of the best people who have ever come out of the Contender Series, and Mike Malott. I mean, he's so good. So, I mean, and I actually, I always watch tape going into this. I saw Chris Duncan's other fights too. He looked really good, and Campbell honestly looked kind of slow. That's what I saw going into it. So I thought Duncan was going to win this pretty convincingly. Well, maybe not convincingly. I kind of thought, second or third round KO, maybe a decision, but that he was definitely going to win this one. Duncan landed first with a couple of heavy shots and a nice kick, already giving Campbell a lot to think about. And that's exactly what I thought. He was going to be the more experienced striker in this one. But then Campbell flipped the table, landed a bomb of an uppercut, and dropped Duncan to his knees. From there, he kept that onslaught going. Lots of huge uppercuts all over the place. And honestly, it looked like it was going to be a finish pretty quickly. But then it was Duncan who flipped it and grabbed the finish himself, landed a nuke, dropped Campbell on his back, threw one more punch from there to knock Charlie out cold, full on asleep, not conscious at all. Incredible performance by Chris Duncan, and another obvious contract winner there. So, I mean, no surprises there. Every single winner on the card won the contract. And I will go into my power rankings, which I will do every single time. The top 5, I mean, I give basically my top 5 ranking, which is of the winners. So, you go through it. My number 1 was Vinicius Salvador, because honestly, it's so unbelievable to me that a flyweight has 13 or 14 finishes and almost all of them were by KO. And he just did that on the Contender Series. That to me is unbelievable when you're that tall in flyweight. That's crazy to me. So no brainer. He was first for sure. Second place, I had Francis Marshall, because I knew how good Matthews was, and Marshall looked really, really, really good. So that was a good second choice. Third, I had Billy Goff, yeah, he got rocked early, and that's why I had to ding him, put him down in a third place. But he's still double champ in CES. Very impressive win here. So I gave him third place. Fourth place for me was Cortes-Acosta, the heavyweight. He's got a long way to go. Yes, he dominated this one, so I had to give him. I couldn't give him last place, but still, he's got a long way to go for sure. And then I had Chris Duncan in fifth because he was basically finished. I mean, really struggled quite a bit, but you know what? He is actually pretty good, so I could have really given him fourth. But yeah, good win there. I gave him fifth. And then, of course, I had my best of the rest, which I won't do every single time, but you know what? Special recognition needed to be given to Shannon Ross and Connor Matthews here because they did look pretty good in their fights, to be honest. They just, got the raw end of the deal, really. So that was the Contender Series. We will take a short break. Wow, an hour and a half in, and go to UFC Vegas 59. I will see ya right after this. Right after I can find it. There we go. Right after this.
Allow me to introduce High Stick Vodka, a new way to celebrate victory. Gather around the glass with an award-winning, ultra-premium Canadian-made vodka. You probably won't listen when I say High Stick Vodka has a smooth, hard-hitting taste, or that it's developed in the birthplace of hockey. You won't listen when I say High Stick Vodka is a tribute to the game of hockey, or when I tell you it's distilled 4 times using Canada's purest mountain spring water to provide an authentic, remarkable flavor. But maybe you will listen when I say it comes in a f***ing hockey stick. Showcase your passion for hockey with our limited edition hand-blown hockey stick bottle. Whether you're celebrating victory or drinking to defeat, High Stick Vodka is better after every shot. Visit us at highstickvodka.com. It also comes in this regular bottle. Celebrate victory. Drink responsibly.
And we're back with UFC Vegas 59. We'll jump right into it. And I will say right off the bat, this is, I think, the first time I've ever done this, where I'm going with actually every single favorite on the card. I didn't really, there's a lot of close ones here, and the odds might change. So, they might not be the favorite on every single site, and they might not be the favorite on Bet99 by the time we're done here. But as far as I can tell, I have actually picked all of the favorites here for the first time. I've never done that before. And that I do mean that for every single fight. Like out of all 12 of them, I picked the favorite in every single one of them on Tapology so far. And we'll get right into it with the main card. So that opens up with Ariane Lipski, who everybody loves. You got to love Ariane Lipski, and Priscilla Cajueira. Pretty close, I will say. I would say it's about as close as the odds suggest here, which is a slight lean towards Lipski, but still very close. What have we got here? Lipski, she joined when she was 11-3 in 2019. Now she's at 14-7. So, fell a little bit with a 3-4 record there in the UFC, but still doing pretty well. She's struggled with some of her opponents like Wood and McCann and Antonina Shevchenko, but she's improved quite a bit since then, and she's always a pretty dangerous person. Cajueira, I don't know how she got this fight right away, but her first fight in the UFC was against Valentina Shevchenko, so that's a rough way to start. But since then, followed that up with a submission loss. That was a submission loss, and followed that up with 2 losses to McCann and Luana Carolina. Since then, she's actually 3-1, but she was still submitted by Jillian Robertson. So to me, the narrative of this one, the styles of this fight would definitely favor Lipski. She got one of the craziest what was it? A leg, what was it? Leg bar or leg lock or something? I don't know what it was, but she basically almost snapped this girl's leg in half. It was one of the craziest things I've ever seen. So yeah, um, amazing on the ground. So yeah, I mean, and she's good on the feet too. Cachoeira definitely has the advantage on the feet, but is it enough to overcome Lipski? I just don't think so. I just don't think so. Lipski's just she's good. She's good enough that she competed well on the feet with with Antonina. I should say Antonina Shevchenko. She competed well with her on the feet and dominated in the grappling scenarios, the clinches, and then of course on the ground. So I think that's the way it's going to go. I think Lipski is probably going to grab a submission, or she's going to use that to her advantage, getting a decision. By the way, she also doesn't really tire out, and Cachoeira has a very bad habit of getting slower. So I'm thinking, she's going to slow down. Lipski's going to get the submission in the second or the third round, or just get the decision win. That's what I think is going to happen here. Oh yeah. Where's my banner? Banner, please. Where is it? There it is. Over at Bet99 for the odds. Lipski minus 180 right now. Cachoeira plus 145. I would say that's pretty much bang on, right where it needs to be. And I'm still going, of course, with Lipski at minus 180. That's still some good value. And it really could, it's close enough that it could go either way. So, but I do give Lipski a pretty clear edge here, though. Anyway, over under 2.5 rounds. The over is minus 180. The under is plus 140. Like I said, there is a good chance that Lipski can grab a submission here. She would, and again, I remind you, Cachoeira was submitted. Yes, she was submitted by Shevchenko, which is, she's good. You might say Shevchenko is good, but she was also submitted by Robertson, and that was just, I think, a year and a half ago. It was 2020. So, well, actually, I guess it would have been 2 years ago now. So, and Jillian, Robertson's good, but Lipski is bigger, and she's also almost as good on the ground. So you got to imagine that could be a distinct possibility that she gets submitted here. So going the under, actually, which is pretty rare, I got to say, it's rare to go with the women under 2.5. But this is one scenario where I think it actually might be okay to do that. And especially at plus 140, it's worth a little bit of risk for sure. Don't go crazy with the bets, but definitely I would say put a few bucks on it, and you could be looking at a minor profit here for sure. Following that, Augusto Sakai and Sergey Spivak. Yeah, I gotta say, it's weird. Sakai is in a weird situation where he's really not that bad. I mean, he doesn't really look that bad. He's had some good performances for sure, but you know what? Honestly, I didn't even really see him throw a single punch in his last 2 fights, because what keeps happening is he just keeps getting pressured back and then he gets knocked out. That's what's been happening, because the other people are too fast and they have too much power. And that's exactly what Spivak has here. He's got speed, he's got power, he's got pressure. I think we're going to see a first round KO again. I think that's it. I think you're going to see Spivak getting a first round KO. Plus, even if he doesn't, he full on suplexed a 280-pound Greg Hardy. If he can throw around Greg Hardy at 280 pounds, he can throw around literally anybody. So, I mean, he could do the same thing with Sakai. That being said, Sakai is actually good on the ground. So maybe not such a great idea compared to Hardy. But that being said, still possible to even just pin him down to the ground and get a decision win that way. But honestly, I just can't see that happening here. I mean, I can't see this leaving the second round, probably even the first, to be honest. So yeah, first or second round KO for Spivak here. That's where I'm going for sure. And the odds, minus 250 for Spivak. plus 200 for Sakai. Definitely going with Spivak here. Definitely going. I'm putting him in a parlay too, to be honest. And then what's interesting to me though is it is set at over under 2.5 rounds. Very interesting. The over is at plus 133, which makes sense. They're not thinking this is going to go to a decision, but under 2.5 at minus 175 for heavyweight. I mean, why not? Like, do I think somebody's going to get a finish before the middle of the third round, I should say? Yeah, I do. So, I would think that's a pretty good one to take advantage of. And that's what I've got for that one. The next one, the Ultimate Fighter. This is the first finale of the night. That would be the ladies, Juliana Miller and Brogan Walker. Very, very close on the odds here. But it does slightly favor who I'm going for. And you know what? A lot of people are going to disagree with me on this. And we were actually talking to somebody just a few weeks ago about who they thought was going to win. And I was actually kind of agreeing with them at the time that I thought Walker was going to win. But you know what? If you watch what happened and watch if you watch Walker's last fight before the Ultimate Fighter, you'll see a pretty good pattern that heavily favors Miller on this one. Walker struggles with grappling. She was beaten by Pearl Gonzalez for that exact reason. She lost to Montana De La Rosa for that exact reason. She basically I think she actually kind of did lose one of her fights in the Ultimate Fighter because of that exact reason. She was out-grappled. She was out-grappled in all 3 of the fights that I saw, and that includes on the Ultimate Fighter, where people aren't even close to as good at grappling as Miller is. So when you're fighting somebody who regularly enters grappling tournaments, it's all over her record on Tapology. So many grappling tournaments, more grappling tournaments than pro fights. That tells you how good she is. And she got a submission on the Ultimate Fighter and also almost submitted the other person. So she almost grabbed 2 submission wins on the Ultimate Fighter. And I want to say actually that she might have been the only women's fighter on the whole season to grab a finish. So that really tells you Miller's the real deal. Like, I maybe it's the personality or the way, her 2-1 record, or I don't know what it is about her, but a lot of people just are not taking her seriously. And you know what? I watched the fights again last night and Miller looked good. She does not care if you punch, she gets hit and she will get hit by Walker. I know she's going to get hit, but you know what? It doesn't phase her at all. Doesn't matter. She will walk straight through it and she will take you down to the ground no matter what and work for a submission. She doesn't care if she's on the bottom or the top or what. She is going to get that fight to the ground and work for that submission. And there is no doubt in my mind that she is going to do that exact same thing again. And like I said, yeah, Walker could, she has a chance to pick Miller apart on the feet. Maybe. But honestly, like I said, with Walker already struggling with grappling, Miller is just going to take advantage of that right away and she's going to take her down. And I really am seeing a submission win on the flyweight finale of this season for Miller. That's what I'm seeing right now. I really, really do. I really, really do see that happening. And I mean, the odds on that, insanely not in favor of that. So, I mean, if I'm right here, we could be looking at some real cash here. The odds, plus 100 for Walker, minus 120 for Miller right now. So I'm going all the way in on Miller for sure. But the over-under is what's crazy right now. They're going heavily in favor of the over 2.5 at minus 400. Minus 400. Minus 400 right now. And keep in mind what I just said, that Walker does not do well against grapplers, and Miller already has a submission win on The Ultimate Fighter and regularly enters grappling tournaments and gets submissions on those. She's only lost, I think it was one fight in the grappling tournament. She's only lost one of them. She won every single other one of them. That tells you how good she is. Like, she is so good on the ground. So to me, at plus 280 for under 2.5. Are you kidding me? Like, I'm definitely putting a few bucks on that. I mean, seriously, I really do think she's going to get the submission win. And I mean, I wonder if they have a betting line. Okay, they don't have the betting line up yet, but I'm not kidding. I would really take a look at Miller by submission. The betting line for that. Whenever the odds come out, the more in-depth odds come out for that, I would seriously take a look at Miller by submission. Because if the under 2.5 is at plus 280, that submission has got to be at plus 300 something, plus 400 something. And that is absolutely insane when you consider the fact of what I just said, that Walker has struggled with grappling and Miller is a bona fide submission artist, basically. Like, that's crazy to me that that's set up like that. Plus, also, I don't know if I need to remind people here too. If you didn't watch the show, Walker had an injured knee. Did that affect her performance on the show? Yes, I'm sure. But like I said, she had grappling problems before the show, before the knee injury. So, already that's a trend. But did she recover? We don't know. Did she recover in time? And if she did recover, did she have enough time to prepare for all the grappling and the submissions that Miller is going to throw out there? Honestly, I just think it's the perfect storm. It is the perfect opportunity for Miller to get a submission win. And I know I've been talking about this for like 5 minutes already, just this one matchup. But seriously, the potential winnings on this are crazy if it happens. They're absolutely insane. Like I said, under 2.5 is plus 280 right now. So I mean, if I'm right about this, you could really be looking at a decent amount of money here. And I'm not saying go all in, but I mean, considering what we've seen recently with both fighters, both of them, not just Miller, not just Walker, but from both of them, putting $20 on that, something like that, putting $20 on the under, or even $20 on a submission, you could triple or quadruple that if she gets a submission here, which again, isn't that unlikely, I don't think. So yeah, that's what I'm seeing. You don't have to listen to me. You don't have to go crazy with it. But I'm just saying it's looking real good for Juliana Miller here. And I'm already a fan, honestly. I wasn't. I got to admit, watch the tape. I hated Juliana Miller earlier in the season. But you know what? That last episode that she was in, where we saw how much this meant to her and how hard she was fighting for it, and how actually good she was too, but just everything about it. And then her talking to, I think it was her family, was it, or her team or something? I can't remember who she was talking to, but all of that, you know what? It flipped me. I am definitely a Juliana Miller fan. I really am, but I'm not even just, and again, I'm not being biased here because I'm now a fan of Juliana Miller. I'm just telling you the facts that Brogan Walker struggled with the grappling, and Miller, very, very good on the ground. Just saying. Now, the other finale, Zach Pauga, Mohammed Usman. The odds are a little bit more they're definitely more one-sided on this one, but I gotta say, it really could go either way on this. But I am going with the favorite on this one, Pauga, for sure, because he just seems to be better in general. It sounds bad to say that maybe, but he really does. He just seems, he's faster. He's noticeably faster. He's got fantastic stand-up. He's never lost. That is actually a true fact. He's never lost in his pro career or his amateur career. He has never lost once, and he dominantly won. I mean, he knocked out Jordan Heiderman in the semifinals, dominated really the first fight too. I mean, he looks so good. And yes, he is more of a light heavyweight. And again, we did talk about that a couple weeks ago when we were talking to that other random person about about this future matchup here. But yes, he is a light heavyweight, and he actually was fighting at light heavyweight before this series. But that being said, Usman actually weighs in at the exact same weight. They both weighed in at 240 pounds this entire season. So neither one of them has a size advantage here, despite the fact that Pauga regularly fights at light heavyweight and Usman doesn't. They're both the same weight going into this fight. So, like there's no advantage there. But like I said, Pauga is faster. So he's faster and the same weight, and he's got better striking, and he's got good grappling defense. Usman's only real chance is to grapple and hopefully get a KO here, but I just don't think he's good enough to do that. Like, I hate to say it because I like him, and I'm an Usman fan, and I'm a fan of his brother too, of course. But Pauga is just that next level better. He's just better all the way around, and I really wholeheartedly believe that he's going to get a finish here. I really do. Especially when you consider, and again, I'm going to go back to even what happened with Miller too. Pauga, not only did Pauga get a KO, just like Miller got her submission win, but Usman was knocked down in both of his, actually, I think it was both of his fights. Maybe not the second fight, but he was knocked down in the first fight by Sipe. And Sipe, yes, he's bigger. He's 265. So he has the extra power, but he is a lot slower than Pauga. So, you got to imagine that with that speed, a little bit less power, but with the speed of it, he's going to get a knockdown and then get the TKO win. I don't think he's going to knock him out cold or anything like that, but to get a TKO in 3 rounds, I'm pretty sure he can do that, especially considering Usman is a little bit slower. He is slow, and he does tend to get hit. That's not a good combination when you're facing somebody who's faster and hits pretty hard. Not a good combo. So I'm seeing a pretty clear finish for Pauga here. And again, heavily favors us here. I mean, the odds on the fighter, let's say, not necessarily, this is a parlay opportunity. Minus 250 for Pauga. That's a clear parlay opportunity. But plus 200 for Usman, obviously. And then, but the over-under at 2.5. It's at 2.5 right now. We're talking about a heavyweight fight here, folks. We're not talking about, the girls anymore. We're talking about a heavyweight fight. And it's over under 2.5 rounds. And it actually favors the over right now at minus 116. So minus 110 for under 2.5 for heavyweights, when one of them has already gotten a knockout on the show, when the other one has been knocked down a couple of times already on the show, and he's slower, and the other guy is fast. Minus 110, like, yeah, I'm putting again like $20 on that at least. I mean, again, and I honestly don't normally do a whole lot of prop bets because there's so many variables, but honestly, especially in these two cases, it seems so likely that I have to do it. I have to put 10, 15, $20 down on it because it just seems so likely that it's going to happen. So yeah, that's where I'm going with that. Next up, Vicente Luque and Jeff Neal. This is a real tough one. The odds favoring Luque, and I wouldn't say quite a bit. It is a little bit close, but it's a lot closer than people think it is. Because, Neal, not exciting. He's not an exciting guy. He's really not. never does anything crazy, but he's technically sound. He has very technical striking, and he uses that very, very well, which I'm pretty sure Luque is going to struggle with. But the difference is the grappling, where Luque, we already saw he submitted Chiesa in the first round. He submitted Woodley in the first round. I think that's what he's going to do here too. I don't know about the first round. Don't quote me on the first round part, but I do think he's going to edge ahead either in a decision with his grappling or he's going to get another submission because Neil has struggled with grapplers in the past. That's how he lost to Neil Magny, and he almost lost to Ponzinibbio in that split decision for the exact same reason. So to me, Luque's got it with the grappling, minus 184 right now. I'm going with Luque. Not part of a parlay. I'm not going to put him in a parlay though, but Luque is looking okay with that one. And the over under, I have no idea. There is no over under on this one. Bet99 has not put up an over under yet. So I don't have the odds for that. But if I had to pick one, I would say if it's under 2.5, I would probably go for it. 1.5, no. But 2.5, I'm thinking about it. I would seriously consider it. Yeah. The main event now, finally, Thiago Santos, Jamal Hill. This is a little bit of a weird one, I gotta say, because it's kind of insane to think that everybody has Jamal Hill knocking out Thiago Santos, considering how famous Thiago Santos, like how much of a veteran Thiago Santos is. It's kind of insane to say that, but you know what? Based on the recent performances, I can't go any other way. You kind of have to believe that Jamal Hill probably is going to knock out Thiago Santos. He just hasn't been able to really do a whole lot recently, Thiago Santos. And, he hasn't been getting a whole lot of offense going. Not that he's not capable of it. You got to remember that. Yes, he didn't get a chance to use it against Johnny Walker, but that's because Johnny Walker was making it boring on purpose. That's what, he was the one making it boring. That was not Thiago Santos's fault. But when you looked at Ankalaev, still didn't get a whole lot of offense going. He did get some good moments, but he was still a little bit slow and couldn't get a whole lot going. Jamal Hill is much faster and he's got the power to boot. So what I think is going to happen is Santos is going to get backed up like he has been the last couple of fights. Jamal Hill always pressures forwards, always, constantly. He's probably going to get pieced up a little bit. I don't think he's going to get out of this unscathed. But if Jamal Hill just walks straight into him and just pressures him constantly, he will probably get that KO. And that's what I'm seeing here. 5 rounds especially, I think we're seeing somebody get knocked out. So, yeah, I'm going with Hill by finish, knocking out Thiago Santos. And honestly, I had it in the first round. That's what I put on Tapology. And I'll tell you why, too. Not just because Hill has been getting first-round KOs, which is also a good reason to bet on Hill getting a first-round KO, because that's what he's been doing. But also, if you actually look back in the history of Thiago Santos, he actually has been knocked out in the first round more than once. More than once. And that was, I think I saw it twice in, one of them I think was in 2016 or so, something like that. So, that was when he was younger and in his prime. Now he's not even in his prime anymore. So I don't think it's that crazy to assume that, to bet on Jamal Hill getting a first round KO. That's what I'm going with on this. I'm going with Hill by finish. And the odds heavily favoring Hill, minus 300. So I'm putting that in a parlay for sure. 230 plus 233 for Santos. And the over under on this one, plus 133 for the over 2.5. Remember, this is a 5-round fight. So over under 2.5 on this one, plus 133 for over, minus 172 for under 2.5. So, I mean, I'm going with the under on this one. I would just have to imagine that, what was I going to say? Excuse me. I would have to imagine that Hill is going to get a finish before the end of the third round for sure. I would think. So that's the way I'm going with it. Now there's two prelims that I'm going to talk about, and then we will call it a night. And this is already again our second longest stream. Unreal. I was trying to cut it down, but we were talking so much about just random tangents, which again were interesting tangents. It's not like I was talking about garbage. Like, I think it was actually pretty interesting, but still, we're dragging it out a little bit. So, first prelim that I want to talk about, Takashi Sato, Brian Battle. I'm talking about this one because, Brian Battle won last season's tough. So, or the Ultimate Fighter, I should say. So, it's a tough episode, like we've got the tough finale, and then we've got a tough alumni from last year the guy who won last year's tough. So I got to talk about it. I will say a lot closer than the odds are suggesting on this one. Way closer, way closer. Because honestly, I think this is pretty much dead even. I really do. Sato, he's had a bit of a rough patch here. Gone 2-3. He's lost to Baeza, Bilal Muhammad, and then Gunnar Nelson. So Baeza and Bilal make sense. I mean, they're both pretty good. Gunnar Nelson, then you're getting there. But it was because of the wrestling and the grappling, which is why I'm also going with Battle on this one. He's not an insane grappler. Like, he's nothing crazy, but he should be able to shut down Sato's weird style of striking by doing that. Not only that, the biggest difference for me, and maybe, it's probably not something that people would think about too much, but Battle kicks a lot. He's very active, like always throws out a lot of output, and he kicks a lot. When you have somebody that moves a lot in a karate stance like Sato, bounces around, moves a lot, lots of bouncing, lots of moving. If you kick their legs a lot, they can't move like that anymore. And that is Sato's best weapon, is his movement. So if Battle can shut that down with his kicks, which I think he will, that's when Battle's going to start to get ahead. He's going to clinch along the fence, maybe even get him down to the ground, start to land some offense of his own. And I think he's going to win a decision. I don't think he's going to get a finish here, but I do think he's going to win a decision using that kind of strategy. That would be the obvious strategy I would think he would be using. And it worked pretty well against Gore too, by the way. That's exactly what he did there. Not to shut down any movement, but to be active and win on the cards like that. Because Sato also has a problem of being active. He doesn't necessarily throw a whole lot when somebody's throwing back at him. So using that strategy, Battle should be able to win a decision like that. So minus 260 for Battle. I'm not sure if I'm convinced enough to put him in a parlay, maybe one of them, but minus 260 for Battle is where I'm going. Over under on this one. The over under is set at 2.5. I'm going minus 148 for the over on this one. Neither one of these guys is really a finisher. Like, they're way more into decisions. So I think this is pretty clearly going to a decision here. Minus 148 is actually a pretty good one for that. So yeah, that's it for that one. And the final one of the night, Terrence McKinney and Eric Gonzalez. And I gotta say, I hope I can find some prop bets for this one, because I am not joking when I say that McKinney, like this is, I don't like to say guarantee or lock, but this is the biggest lock I've ever seen. I'm dead serious about this. McKinney is going to get a KO. Mark my words. He is going to get a KO probably within the first 2 minutes, if not within the first 30 seconds of this fight. I am dead serious. He is going to win this easily. easily. Like, he is going to get, like I said, a K. I would be shocked. I would be genuinely shocked if Gonzalez can last more than 2 minutes with McKinney just wailing on him. I mean, it's just crazy to watch. If you don't know who McKinney is, he was the guy that fought Dober. Basically, he knocked down Dober, I think it was at least twice. I don't know how Dober made it through, because seriously, it looked like McKinney was going to knock Dober out in less than a minute. That is what he was doing. So if he can do that to Dober, he is going to absolutely smoke Gonzalez. And it is not even going to be close. Because if you don't know who Gonzalez is, he was actually knocked out in the second round by Jim Miller in his last one. And I don't need to remind anybody, Jim Miller, not really a knockout artist at this point in his career. Like, he's still got some power. He's still getting a couple knockouts here and there. But to call him a knockout artist at this stage is absurd. Like, no. So, yeah, McKinney is going to run through this guy, I would say, genuinely within less than 30 seconds. That is what I would say. So if you can find a prop bet out there that says McKinney in anybody less than half a round, or McKinney by first round KO, or first round, like under 1.5, literally anything like that, McKinney by KO, anything like that. If you can find any prop bet like that, jump on it. Seriously, put some money into it. Again, don't go insane, because, there's always a chance that this could slip into somehow a second round or whatever. Or maybe, he could even get a submission. He seriously could even get a first round submission here. He's also pretty good on the ground. But I'm just saying, by far the more likely scenario here is he gets a knockout within 30 seconds. And again, I'm not being crazy, because he really he got a 7-second KO in his UFC debut, knocked Dober down in less than 30 seconds, did a similar thing in his other UFC fight, plus in 3 other fights before his UFC debut, he got 2 KOs in less than a minute, and one of them I think was like a minute 20. So, like, he's got 4 sub 2-minute KOs in a row. And he's fighting somebody that just got knocked out by Jim Miller. Like, that is the biggest no-brainer I have ever seen. So he is minus 1,000 right now. So yes, I'm putting that in some parlays. Does it add value? Not really. So I'm not going to be going crazy in the parlays with him, because it just doesn't add value. But this is where you can get some crazy, crazy prop bets going. And I hope that there's some betting site out there that I can find that has it on there. Because I got to say, if it's a smart betting website, I don't think they would put it up. I really don't think so, because they're going to lose a lot of money on that. Because like I said, McKinney KO in less than a minute. That's what I'm saying. And I would be shocked if he doesn't get it. I really would be. So anyway, that's it for me. Let's go into the parlays really quick. You've got Corey McKenna, minus 234. I definitely would not put her in the parlay, I gotta say. I mean, I was screwed on her last time, because there's a huge reach difference in this one. And although I do think McKenna is going to win, with that huge, I think it was like an 8-inch reach advantage or something like that, with that insane reach advantage, I'm not going anywhere near it, especially considering it's also, a women's fight too. So it's got a lot of things going against it here. So I'm not putting that in a parlay, even though, again, I am picking McKenna. Quinlan at minus 234. Not a bad idea. Jason Witt historically gets knocked out quite a bit. So Quinlan, you could easily see getting a win there. I might put that in a parlay. Battle at minus 260. I was saying, am I confident enough to put that in a parlay? I'm not really quite sure. McKinney minus 1,000. Oleg Shajik against Sam Alvey, minus 650 for Oleg Shajik. I think that's a pretty clear parlay opportunity as well. Lipsky, no. Spivak minus 260, perfect for the parlay. Pauga minus 250, perfect for the parlay. Staying away from Miller just in case, because again, it is women's MMA. They're not even in UFC yet. So even though again, I am very confident in Miller, there's always that chance. There's always that chance when you're talking about inexperienced fighters that something could go crazy. So when you put them in, I'm not going to put it in a parlay, but am I confident enough to go for a submission win for Miller? Yes. Yes, I am. Anyway, after that, Jamal Hill minus 300. That would be the last one. So that's Hill, Pauga, Spivak, Oleksiejczuk, McKinney, maybe Battle if you're feeling like it, maybe Quinlan if you're feeling like it. Yeah. And maybe even Luque, maybe even Miller, if you believe me about the submissions. But that's where I'm going with it. And that is it for me. If you want to hear about the other sports, Area 51, it's right there, has got you covered. It's also linked below. All of my socials. It's the old Area 51 website below, but we will be putting up the new one down below as well. And also, like I said, socials down below. That is Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, everything. I'm everywhere, baby. So yeah, we will see you next week. That'll be, of course, this card we just talked about, week 3 of the Contender Series. And then San Diego, or as Ron Burgundy would say San Diego. That is where we're going next, which is Dominic Cruz and Chito Vera. I had to think about that for a second, but that's where we're going next week. Gonna be a fantastic card as well. I can't wait. And look at that. I think there's a little bit of lag. A little bit. I think it's because of the lighting, possibly. Anyway, that is what we have next week. I can't wait to see this. I can't wait to see McKinney absolutely destroy this guy. Oh my God. I seriously can't wait. I hope it happens. I mean, honestly, the odds are pretty locked in for this happening, I gotta say, but I'm excited to watch it happen, and I hope it does happen. And he's a good guy too. He's a really good guy. I really hope he gets it done and gets another. I mean, really, he could end up in the top 15 pretty quickly here. I don't know why they didn't give him somebody good. Maybe it's because he wanted a quick turnaround. I don't know. But anyway, see you next time. Wait, I need to get my outro going. Where is it? Thanks for watching, everybody. Now, I will see you next time. See ya.